It's me, the D-O-double-G. Welcome to the Eden Army Podcast with your host tonight, Pete Robert Tucci.
Wow, look at that. We are early tonight, everybody. How's everyone doing tonight? My name is indeed Pete Robert Tucci, and this is the Eden Army Podcast. Let's take a couple minutes, let Kick populate a little bit, see who is in the house. Of course, Terry and Russ is in the background. Jeff, hey-de-ho. Guy is in Kick, it looks like. We'll see if anybody picks up on any of the other platforms. So we do have a pretty good show tonight. We don't have a guest, which will allow us to get back to our mandatory minimums. And this time it's going to be the bug out bag. And we're going to talk about backpacks, shelter, and food, as well as current events. So one thing, hey, Mama Teresa, how are you doing? Good to see you. Don't eat up all of Russ's bandwidth back there. So I see Christy over there on Facebook. I'm sure she's going to chime in on most of the platforms. I think she runs all of them, Facebook, YouTube, and Kick all at one time. That is dedication right there, guys. So, but we do have a pretty good show. We'll get back to the mandatory minimums, like I said. And I don't know if I told you guys. I know I had mentioned it maybe in the promo, but I have decided, with y'all's help, on who is going to do the book one Audible for 3 Days to See Eden. So we've knocked that down. We've signed the contract, and actually, it is in production. So I look forward to that, and we'll talk about later on exactly who we picked and why I felt like he was going to be a good match for our Army. And also, guys, we do have a giveaway, but here's the stipulation. The giveaway will only be on Kick, and then after the intermission, we're going to tell you how to put yourself in for that giveaway. And I will give a little hint. If you are a subscriber over there on Kick, your chances for the giveaway are doubled. So it's a whole random raffle thing that automatically doubles the chances for anybody that subscribes. So this week's giveaway, well, we'll talk about it on Kick, but you're not going to want to miss next week's giveaway. I certainly promise you that. So let's see who else we got over here in Kick. If you're in Kick, sound off. Chrissy, I see. If you're in Kick, sound off. That way I can recognize you as being here and we can get this show on the road. Other than that, how's everybody doing? It is a Friday night, so I sure do appreciate you guys spending that with me and Russ. Of course, Russ is always in the background, clicking buttons and doing his things. This show would not work without him, so I don't think we appreciate his hard work enough. So... Hey, Chrissy says, give it away now. Red Hot Chili Peppers. Okay, so look, it looks like the Kick channel is starting to populate. I say we just go on and pop off with the news. What do you guys say? Patience. Let's do the news, guys. Russian subs off the coast of Florida. Look, the Pentagon confirmed that Russian nuclear submarines armed with guided missiles capable of reaching 100 nautical miles is currently operating off the east coast of Florida. This activity supposedly is part of a Russian missile drill ordered by the Kremlin. The vessels are scheduled to proceed to the Caribbean as part of military exercise with Cuba, but still, it's a little bit unsettling, right? And it's been happening for years, so don't be alarmed. These drills are not unheard of, although the timing raises some concerns, guys. It raises a little bit of concerns given that we do have an ongoing conflict in Ukraine and Vladimir Putin's perceptions of exactly how weak the United States leadership is. Some analysts suggest that Vladimir Putin might be just demonstrating military strength, particularly in response to President Biden's recent statements indicating a willingness to deploy American arms within Russian territory. Russ, go ahead and hit cut one, please.
There are Russian warships in the Caribbean as we speak right now, some of them very near Cuba. And a lot of people wondering what is going on, especially if you're on a cruise and you're wondering, honey, Was that a Russian gunship? Anyway, Jennifer Griffin following all that at the Pentagon. Jennifer, what's going on here?
Well, Neil, U.S. Northern Command and the Canadian Armed Forces have deployed warships and aircraft to monitor the Russian Navy as it conducts drills in Cuba's waters. Russian warships can be seen here entering the port of Havana this morning. It feels like a return to the Cold War and even the Cuban Missile Crisis. Ships from the U.S. Second Fleet, U.S. Fourth Fleet, U.S. Coast Guard Atlantic area are shadowing the movements of 4 Russian naval vessels. A U.S. Northern Command spokesperson telling Fox, quote, "We've been actively monitoring the Russian ships as they transit the Atlantic Ocean within international waters. Air and maritime assets under U.S. Northern Command have conducted operations to ensure the defense of the United States and Canada. Russia's deployments are part of routine naval activity which pose no direct threat or concern to the United States." That according to U.S. Northern Command. The Pentagon has been monitoring the Russian warships as they cross the Atlantic, we're told. On Tuesday, the Russian flotilla sailed less than 30 miles off Florida's south coast. U.S. intelligence assesses there are no nuclear weapons on board the ships, but the convoy does include the Kazan nuclear-powered submarine. Cuba's foreign ministry said the Russian warships will be in Havana until Monday and said their presence, quote, "does not represent a threat to the region."
Well, there you go. Again, like Jeff was saying in chat, we have subs all over near Russia and stuff like that, so don't be alarmed. But it is another way for Vladimir Putin to flex his military might, especially now. So listen, if you guys have any questions during the news, we are going to address all questions, but we're going to do it after the news is complete. I have 4 stories for you. We'll go through, and then if you have any questions or comments, we'll answer all those. And if you have a question, go ahead and hashtag Pete and then your question, or hashtag Russ and then your question, and we'll make sure to get to them. Appreciate that. So Vladimir Putin flexing his muscle just because, of course, President Biden has indicated that he may be willing to use some of those arms we've given to Ukraine inside of Russian soil. So I don't know. It's a back and forth. I will also add, I didn't put anything together on this, but Vladimir Putin did offer a ceasefire and basically a truce with stipulations, one of which the territories within the Ukraine that Russia currently holds that were part of Russia prior to Ukraine being formulated in 1991. They stay with Russia and they stop pursuing any involvement with joining NATO. So and like I said, I think Vladimir Putin senses weakness with our administration. I think he wants to get in as many licks as he can right now before a potential regime change in January rather. So that's what I think is going on there. So speaking of weak leaders, President Joe Biden and Ukrainian President Zelensky have signed a landmark 10-year agreement designed to bolster Ukraine's defenses against Russian aggression. The Ukrainian president described the new security deal as the strongest agreement struck since his country's independence in 1991. Trump, on the other hand, has always been skeptical of providing additional military aid to Ukraine, at one point criticizing it by saying it's an endless flow of American treasure. And I can't say that I blame him for that. But, however, most recently, he has expressed openness to lend money instead of giving it to him, and went on to say also that Ukraine's independence is of the utmost importance to the United States. Russ, cut 2, please.
The diplomacy that's inherent. There is some reporting that Biden and Zelensky may actually sign a security agreement as part of the G7. Is there anything you can share on that front and tangible goals that Biden may walk away with?
Yeah, that's something that we can actually confirm. There was a briefing aboard Air Force One as it's en route to Italy where Jake Sullivan, the national security officer, confirmed that the two will sign this bilateral security agreement. Now, this was a promise, so to speak, last year to President Zelensky of Ukraine, who has forcefully said to not only Biden, but other world leaders that he wants to be a part of NATO. So this is a step forward, of course, in that direction, but not necessarily a full-fledged membership of NATO. It's just between the United States and Ukraine. I'll note that over a dozen other nations also have a similar agreement with Ukraine to continue to train its military, to provide military aid, more importantly, in its time of need. Now, this agreement with the United States and Ukraine will be for the next 10 years, but I'll note that it's on the executive level, and another president could come and undo this agreement. So it's not permanent in terms of a treaty or a NATO treaty, for example, in terms of the U.S. and Ukraine being able to, the U.S. being able to assist Ukraine. But still, nonetheless, it is a key and pivotal moment for that U.S.-Ukraine relationship.
So there you go. Just like this reporter just said, no matter if President Dementia signed a 10-year agreement with the Ukraine, a new president can come in and nullify that agreement. So it's not like we are locked into paying these guys tons and tons of money for the next 10 years. That very well may change once the administration changes. So much like the way President Biden changed all the southern border laws or EOs that Trump had put in place. He changed those the day he got elected into office. So, speaking of the porous southern border, did you guys see last week that 8 people suspected with suspected ties of ISIS-K have been arrested in the United States? According to multiple people familiar with the matter, the arrest took place in New York City, highly populated, Philadelphia, highly populated, and Los Angeles, highly populated, and the individuals who entered the U.S. through the southern border are being held on immigration violations. If you remember, in an effort to bolster Biden's poll numbers, President Biden recently signed an EO, an executive order, limiting the number of illegal entries to 2,500 per day. But since the order was signed on June 4th, illegal crossings have indeed decreased from 4,000 to 3,000 a day. However, Border Patrol agents are reportedly still being instructed to release anyone they apprehend, regardless of the executive order. So it's all smoke and mirrors, right? It's estimated that 10 million illegal immigrants have already entered into the United States, and at the current rate of 3,000 per day, another million could enter by the end of the year, give or take. Meanwhile, the ACLU is suing the administration over the executive order. The organization stated, "We're challenging President Biden's executive action because it's flatly illegal and inconsistent with asylum laws that Congress passed decades ago." The ACLU also sued Donald Trump, if you remember. They won that lawsuit under the same terms, and illegal contacts by the Border Patrol agents, I think, numbered 400 in that year. So regardless of what the ACLU does and regardless of what the Biden administration is saying, they are not acting on the executive order the way they should. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk about ISIS-K. Who is ISIS-K? If you remember, ISIS-K was responsible for the tragic concert attack that we broke here on the podcast a few weeks ago that ended up killing 144 people. It was actually a few months ago, and wounded hundreds. Some are considering them the deadliest of the ISIS offshoots. Many agencies have warned that a wide open southern border could be used by terrorists, and that's exactly what's happening. Cut 3.
8 possible terrorists, all foreign nationals arrested in New York, LA, and Philadelphia, and they came into the country across the southern border. CBS's Errol Barnett has new reporting on what led to the arrests.
8 individuals, all from the Central Asian country of Tajikistan, were arrested in Los Angeles, New York, and Philadelphia. They entered the United States this year and in 2023, crossing the Mexican border. They were vetted and allowed to remain in the country. CBS News has learned further investigation uncovered the men had possible ties to ISIS-K, the terror group which claimed responsibility for an attack at a Moscow concert hall that killed more than 140 people earlier this year. The FBI used a wiretap to track the men, and sources say what they discovered led authorities to quickly arrest them on immigration charges.
Typically, bringing individuals in on immigration-related charges is the quickest and easiest way to take individuals back into custody, but that does not rule out additional terrorism-related charges further down the road.
FBI Director Christopher Wray warned earlier this year of a heightened threat level with thousands of people crossing the southern border.
Our most immediate concern has been that individuals or small groups will draw some kind of twisted inspiration from the events in the Middle East to carry out attacks here at home.
Well, and there you go. And we've just caught a number of ISIS-K individuals here in the United States. So this is coming to fruition. This is a side effect of the Democrats trying to hold power to bring in voters by keeping the U.S. southern border open. So this is a side effect. That goes to show that this administration does not care about the common person, does not care about you and me, nor does he care about our family. They would rather maintain power for another 4 years than worry about the security of our nation. And it's treasonous. It's treason. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He has President Biden has an obligation to secure our borders and to keep his people safe, and he's not doing it. And anyway, let me stop there because we're still on Facebook and YouTube. But we'll get back to that when we move over to Kick. So let's get out of the United States because it's making me angry. But let's talk about the war in Israel. More tunnels have been found, this time in Rafah. The IDF has reported that it located 2 kilometers of Hamas tunnels running adjacent to Rafah's border with Egypt, and actually into Egypt itself. Inside the tunnels, IDF troops found weapons, explosives, and a large amounts of intelligence material. Israeli combat engineers have since demolished those tunnels. In total, the IDF located 20 tunnels that crossed into Egypt, prompting some Israeli news agencies and Israeli podcasters to question how those tunnels could have been constructed without the knowledge of Egypt. Now remember, Egypt and Israel have a peace agreement, quasi-peace agreement. So if they show knowledge of these tunnels being built, that could be a potential problem for them. And not only are they asking about how did the Egyptian government not know about it, but how did our Central Intelligence Agency not know about it? Some have even speculated that this could be one reason the United States has been so vocal about not wanting Israel to invade Rafah. Egypt is currently denying the existence of the tunnels, like I said, and the American government is not commenting on the matter. Cut 4.
A mile-long terrorist tunnel route has been uncovered in eastern Rafah with dozens of anti-tank missiles and weapons inside. The Israel Defense Forces providing the details along with this video right here on your screen. Now, the IDF saying a tunnel shaft was located just feet away from the Rafah crossing, branching off into several different routes with several blast doors and a hideout. Do want to bring in Josh Haston, a Middle East correspondent for Jewish News Syndicate, joining us now live to talk more about all of this. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Thanks so much, Josh.
All right, so first off, can you explain the significance overall of this discovery there in eastern Rafah? Because the images released by the IDF pretty much say a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So here you have one of many terror tunnels which have been discovered over the course of the last 7 months. And this one is especially significant because the IDF is committed towards wiping out the remaining 4 battalions of Hamas, which are located in Rafah, which is alongside the Egyptian border. Now, they found anti-tank missiles, they found grenades, AK-47s, all sorts of equipment, in addition to the fact that there's an actual tunnel there, which Hamas uses time and time again in order to pop out of the ground and take on Israeli soldiers. So a very significant discovery. I think this will lead to a more successful mission by the IDF in Rafah now that these weapons have been seized, these weapon caches have been taken, and the fact that this tunnel has been discovered, which can no longer be operational in targeting Israeli troops who are trying to finish this war and destroy Hamas once and for all for the sake of Israel and for the sake of humanity.
And it does sound as though dozens upon dozens of, really hundreds of tunnel shafts have been found all across Gaza, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. This is time and time again. We've been finding this. Hamas has been working on this for years. The biggest mistake Israel made was leaving Gaza in 2005, which essentially had provided no eyes on the ground when the IDF pulled out and Israel pulled out all its citizens. So Hamas has been using all of these years to develop this essentially an underground city for terrorism. This isn't a city to protect their citizens. Their citizens are on the front lines, and Hamas hides behind their citizens time and time again, committing the double war crime of attacking Israel, hiding behind their own people, and creating this underground network, which is hundreds of kilometers, hundreds of miles long, in order to attack Israel.
Well, there you go. So undercover into Egypt proper, and nobody knows how it happened. So moving arms and everything else into Rafah, feeding the war machine and the terrorists that are Hamas. So we got a lot of, I don't know if we have many questions. We will get to the questions right after this message. There you go, guys. And look, Russ, you're on. I don't know if you expected to be on, but I put you on. You're there.
Okay, fine. Okay, fine.
So let me address some
It
things.
is what it is. I just spaced it.
That's all right. Let me address some things that are going on in chat right now, real quick, before we get to the questions on the news. Apparently, when my wife's away, I never bathe. In my underwear doing this podcast, which that's not a far stretch right now, by the way. And what else did they say? But the dogs have not died yet. And no bunny slippers. Actually, I do not have any shoes on. I am a hillbilly from the South, and I have no shoes on. And you're lucky I even have pajamas on underneath this. So, Dan, welcome, Dan. Dan made it. Let's see. Will, you made it. Will, you're driving. Be careful. Meta, good to see you guys. Rusty, do we have any questions about the news? Anything anybody wanted to add to the news?
A couple of them. Let's see here. From the news themselves. No, actually directly related to the news, none that I saw. Had a couple of comments that they wanted your opinion on, however. Let's see here. We'll start with Terry. And this generated a lot of stuff in chat. Terry said, did you see where the House voted for automatic military registration for males 18 to 26 goes to the Senate? Now, Terry, I didn't catch it in chat, but I think Teresa asked, aren't we already doing that? Isn't that called the selective service?
Yeah, that's exactly right. When you go to, I think, register to vote potentially or get your first try, I don't remember, but you actually are handed your selective service paperwork. So now I'm not sure if they want to make that automatic, but let's think about that for a minute. Why would they want to make that automatic? Because of all the undocumented people in the United States right now. Wouldn't it be nice to say, look, you're 18, you're here in the United States, now we can draft you, right? That would make sense to me. So that's a good point.
And, and I don't disagree with that. And I also think and I know this is going to be a bone of contention for some people, and probably particularly you, Pete. it should be all able-bodied people between the ages of 18 and 26. Russ's opinion. But
yeah, and Israel does that. Israel does that. I got
a
and
lot of
I
other
told this
countries
story.
do.
Yeah, I told this story but we've been lucky here in the United States that so many people have volunteered for the service already. We haven't had to do that. Now, if something were to pop off where it became not just regional in the Middle East or in Russia or in Ukraine, believe me, they'd be scooping people up like mad because they would not have enough meat shields to send over there. So,
Agreed.
Melissa,
And I understand. Yep, Melissa had a question. I'm getting ready to put it up on the screen, but we have a couple more as well.
good.
Melissa wanted to know, and yes, she gets priority votes because she's the mom. She says, why didn't they show the pictures of the 8 terrorists? Pete?
So that is a good question. The reason they didn't do that, first of all, it's not that they're hiding the fact that they came in through the southern border and that they're potential ISIS-K terrorists. But Melissa, to be honest with you, some of the reasons they might not want to identify them is because they might still be working intelligence leads on those 8 individuals. So that may be one reason why they're not identifying them per se and showing their pictures. We all know what they look like. We all know where they came from. We all know they came to the poorest southern border that this administration is allowing terrorists to come through. So at least they're not hiding that fact like they've done in the past. But I suspect there's still ongoing investigations and probably a shit ton more people to go catch, if I had to guess, Miss Melissa. So,
yeah. So Corey had a comment in regards to the Biden deal with Ukraine. And he says that 10-year deal is Biden attempting to tie Trump's hands after the next election.
That's true. However, that's an executive deal, and that could be immediately removed right after Trump takes office. Corey, exactly like what Biden did to Trump on the southern border. He wiped out all of that all that executive action. So this is only an executive action. It wasn't put into law. So as soon as the next administration comes in, they could either renegotiate or just do away with it permanently, whatever they see fit. So,
and the last one is from NYCO, Mr. Jeff Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And he says the Saudis not renewing the petrodollar is a threat, but over a long term, what are your thoughts, Pete?
Yeah, Jeff, this is probably, to be honest with you, the biggest news of the week, honestly. But I'm not into global economics, and I can tell you those guys over at Forward Observer are top notch when it comes to that kind of stuff. But I can tell you this is a big, big, big deal. If they get away from the petrodollar the way they're talking about it and going into something like BRICS or something like that, the U.S. economy is screwed because that's going to allow them to take in other currencies for these oils, these shipments of oil. So huge, huge, huge deal. Unfortunately, I cannot wrap my head around the global economics behind it to give you a real articulate answer. But I can tell you that's probably the biggest news of the week.
So as we're talking about economics a little bit, Pete, what do you think about Trump going up into the Capitol yesterday and talking about no federal taxes and tariffs? What's your opinion on that?
I don't think. Look, I think he's you got to have federal taxes, guys. You need to put highways. Now tariffs, on the other hand, and I'm assuming when he said tariffs, he's talking about stuff coming in from other nations. We need to highly tax those. Okay, especially from China. Xi is already complaining to Biden about the high tariffs on the vehicles coming from China. Federal taxes, we're paying for them. There's no way, ifs, ands, or buts, we're going to get away from that unless we put those tariffs so high that it offsets those costs. But as we know, our government, when they have money, they don't give it back to us. They spend it on bullshit and they send it to other countries so they can get rich. So federal taxes never go away. Tariffs should be higher, at least at the rate that they're charging us to bring goods into their nation. Right?
Exactly.
So That's my thought.
And Chrissy had a comment, and then we're going to wrap up commenting. That's the last of the hashtags.
Okay.
And let's see here. Why would Russians travel without their full armaments? I wouldn't want our country to travel away without being ready for anything.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I think what she's saying is evidently, and I didn't honestly pay that much attention when the newsreel was up. They were saying they might have said something about not having their full complement of armament. And, why would they come all the way from Russia to do this exercise without a full armament?
Oh, gotcha. So
whereas what we would.
So when they're talking about the full complement of armaments, they were talking about specifically the Russian submarines. Although they were nuclear powered, supposedly they did not have nuclear warheads on the submarine. So that's what that's all about, because that would certainly preempt us to do something if we knew. I don't know how we
absolutely.
would even. I don't even know how we would even know though. But that would certainly. I mean, that would be the next Cuban Missile Crisis, right?
Yeah, I'm sure there is a way that we would know that. And when you're going to a training exercise, 9 times out of 10 you don't carry true live ordnance. Now, if you're going into a hostile area and you think that might be something different, then for lack of a better term, your combat load may be a little different. That's just based off of my experience, and I dealt mostly with aircraft. But again, since we're that, I mean, Russ's opinion on that, I mean, they've been doing exercises like this for years. The only reason this high in priority is because of everything that's going on with Ukraine and Russia, and then our dipshit in command in chief doing the stuff he's doing. Russ's opinion.
Yeah, and it's a valid opinion, Russ, because I mean, Putin, like I said a few weeks back, he's playing chess, and Mr. Poopy Pants is playing freaking checkers. So
no, he's playing Chinese checkers, brother.
You're 100% right on that. And the thing of it is, we'll ask to check the warheads on the subs. I suspect we might have some intelligence over there in Russia that's telling what some of those armaments are. I would think. So, if Will says if they were to do anything to be annihilated, we'd all be in mutual assistance, mutual assured destruction, right? Mad. That's we'd all be dead. So that's the only thing that's been keeping the peace in this world since the Cold War and since the fall of the Berlin Wall, right? So very cool. So let's talk about how, Russ, I'm going to pop up. Well, we won't do that yet.
You want to do it? You going to do it now, or you want to do it after the intermission? Let's do it after the intermission. That way we're over on kick.
I like it. Let's do that. But I will mention for those people that are watching, if anybody does or watches the replay on Facebook and or YouTube, come to kick.com because we give away stuff there. And I'm going to go through once after intermission how that's going to happen, guys. There's a specific procedure you have to do to get enrolled in this raffle. But if you're watching on any other platform or if you're watching this on a rerun, come to kick.com. All the cool kids are there, and we give free stuff away. So I don't know what else to tell you. So get the Kick. If that's all the questions, roll book 3.
No.
Just as